Hey, how's it going, everybody? If you're new here, welcome in, and if you've been here before, smash the like button on the way in. I'm Rollshambo, the connoisseur and collector of all things sharp and shiny, and today I'm excited because my friends over at Vosteed reached out about a couple knives they wanted me to check out, and today we are going to talk about the first one. This is the Vosteed Mini Psyop, and if you didn't know, I am excited because the Psyop, the regular Psyop, has been one of my most favorite acquisitions of 2024. I've picked up a number of different knives, and the regular Psyop has been absolutely fantastic. It's been an incredible piece of cutlery, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I've talked about it ad nauseum on this channel because it's just extremely well made. It's a very great design from Tough Knives. That's Jeff Blauvelt over at Tough Knives, and it's really cool. Everything from the blade shape to the milling work on the handle scales to the locking mechanism. By far and away, this is one of my favorite Vosteeds, one of my most favorite knives released here this year. We need to talk about this guy because this is the Mini Psyop. Also designed by Tough Knives, but in this form and factor, a smaller knife. This is going to be a lot smaller, but there are some key differences that we need to talk about. So first of all, let's start with what does it cost and what is it made out of? Now, this is $139 on Vosteed's website. 139 buckaroos gets you a knife that comes in at 6.5 inches overall with an LMAX blade and carbon fiber handle scales. You can get the blade finish in either this black stonewash or in a regular satin finish, and you can get the handle scales either in this beautifully done carbon fiber or in a micarta material that they call Norplex ultratech, which is not something I'm terribly familiar with, but we're going to stick to the carbon fiber version for now. It has these beautifully done orange anodized thumb studs and matching orange anodized backspacer, deep carry pocket clip, which is in fact reversible. It's operating on a single-sided captive pivot, which is of course taken apart by this T8 pivot screw. It has ceramic bearings and then T6 body screws. It's also accentuated by this lanyard hole in the back, but otherwise it should be a very familiar profile if you have or have seen the regular sized Vosteed Psyop, because this is, after all, the same blade shape and the same handle scales, just further scaled down. So you might be thinking, okay, the main difference here is going to be the handle scale material and the lock and of course the overall size. Big whoop, right? Not entirely, because even though the profile is the same as the larger version, I have noticed two key differences that could make this very attractive to people depending upon what they're looking for in a knife. The first is going to be the blade stock thickness. Look at how thin that blade stock is. That is absolutely bananas, especially when you compare it to the regular sized Psyop. The regular sized Psyop is no chonker in that realm either, but in this case, you can barely see the profile of the blade in a straight up and down profile like this. It is razor thin. That is whisper thin. It's very slicey. No wonder this blade is flat ground, because it has to be. If they did a hollow grind, they grind right through the sucker. That makes this extremely slicey. During my cutting test, I noticed that this would cut for miles. It would go for a very long time. And because LMAX is decently tough, it's a great candidate for this really thin blade and edge geometry. The next kind of person who's going to really appreciate this knife is going to be the person who wants a lightweight carry. The carbon fiber version of this only weighs 1.7 ounces, with the micarta version coming in just slightly higher at 1.8. That is crazy. Carbon fiber is a super strong, super tough, lightweight material, and it shines in this capacity. If you're someone who takes a knife like this camping or hiking, and you really care about every single ounce that you're carrying on you, or maybe you just wear gym shorts all day and you don't want your knife to pull your pants down, this is going to be a fantastic option. I have a feeling that this knife is going to appeal to people who also like the benchmade bug out, but don't necessarily want to pay the benchmade bug out prices. And with that out of the way, let's talk a little bit about the QC items. How's the lockup? Lockup and lockout is great. What about the blade centering? Blade centering on this knife is perfect. There's no issues there. And there is, of course, no traditional detent going on here, but you do get actually a bit of detent from the crossbar style lock. And I've got to say, if you're looking at this and you're also thinking of the Vosteed Mini Nightshade, which was done in a very similar fashion, there's also a bit of a difference between these two. Aside from the fact that we have what looks like two different carbon fiber patterns, the Vosteed Mini Nightshade has a crossbar style lock, which is much lighter. This is infinitely lighter, without a shadow of a doubt. And I'm wondering if they looked at this knife and they said, that's great, but we wish that there was a little bit more of a crossbar style detent here, because that spring on the Mini Psyop feels much stiffer, but it does allow you to get more of a definite deployment on that thumb stud, which is pretty nice in my opinion. I am glad that they went with the studs instead of a deployment hole on this small blade. And if you're someone who likes to slow roll out the blade, you can definitely do that as well. Indexing and actuation on this knife is a little bit difficult for me because it is a shorter knife, but of course I can still do that. And the balance is right and tight. So you might be asking yourself, do you have anything that you don't like about this knife? I have a few nitpicks, and it's a general set of nitpicks that I have from time to time, depending upon the hardware used on the knife. And so of course, I'll start by saying I wish that these body screws were in fact T8 and not T6, but that's a standard gripe that I have, and that doesn't seem to be a huge deal to a lot of people. The next gripe that I have is got to be with the pocket clip screw holes on the show side scale. I actually wish that they had done a cutout and had an insert there instead. That would have looked cleaner, or at the very least given us some opposing screws to protect the threaded holes on the other side. Obviously, neither of those issues are really true issues, but they are in fact personal preference gripes. I'm really looking forward to the day that Vosteed decides to use T8 hardware all around. And if you're wondering why that's something that I even talk about, it's because T6 hardware is responsible for 100% of the knife screws that I've ever stripped out during my time as a hobbyist. Aside from that, it's probably a non-issue to you, and so take that with a grain of salt. That's just my preference. Now, if you're looking at this and you do find yourself to be interested in this knife, I will tell you that I have an affiliate link down in the description below. Whether or not you use that link is entirely up to you, but if you do use it, it does support the channel and it helps make sure that I can continue to do tabletop reviews like this and bring you details that hopefully make a difference for you and are, in the very least, entertaining. But I am, of course, curious to find out, what do you think of the Vosteed Mini Psyop? Is this one that you've already picked up? Are you thinking about picking it up? If not, why not? Let's have that conversation in the comment section down below. If you've gotten this far and you haven't done so yet, consider subscribing. And if you want to watch more awesome knife and EDC content, click on one of the videos that pops up next.